start by a survey. Can I get everyone to please stand up? Please stand up. 8 o'clock session. Let's do this. So there's 5 options to this answer or this survey. Before sitting down, based upon which answer you want, let's hear all 5, and then we'll go through it. So, what keeps you up at night? First option, declining on-premise traffic. So that is both in-store and on-restaurant. Number 2, declining retail sales. 3, shift to e-commerce and m-commerce. 4, advertising. So think of it as the cost of the Googles, the Facebooks, the Instas, the Snaps. 5, lack of Ambien refills. If you are staying up at night due to declining on-premise traffic, please sit down. Interesting. Okay. Declining retail sales. Quite a few more. Shift to e-commerce and m-commerce. Good stuff. We got lots of stuff for you on this one. And then advertising. And the remaining 2, not going to talk to after this because I need lots of refills of Ambien. Next survey. Don't need to stand. Stay seated. We can just do it through a show of hands. And this is really just for me to figure out where to take this conversation we're going to have in the next 160 slides. Tech impacting retail today and in the next 12 months. Virtual or augmented reality. Advertising. Same sort of advertising we talked about before, but the way in which you are doing the advertising, picking between the Facebooks and the Googles, etc. Marketplaces, so on the restaurant side, the Grubhubs, the Seamlesses. On the e-commerce product side, the Wayfairs and the eBays and the Amazons. Social media. And then lastly, the attention economy. So in this world of too much content, how do we intrigue a customer? Show of hands for number 1. Good audience. Show of hands for number 2, advertising. Okay. Show of 3, marketplaces. Okay. Social media. And then lastly, the attention economy. Okay. Very good. Anybody know who this guy is? He's the CEO of Hilton. We do not believe there is a material impact on the bulk of our markets or with the core business and leisure customers. Who is he talking about? We all know it's Airbnb. Airbnb will list or has listed close to 4x the number of room nights of the largest incumbent. Now, this is slightly misleading because Marriott and Starwood have now joined forces, but I largely believe the reason I kept the slide this way is Starwood and Marriott joined because they are looking down the road at Airbnb and finally realize that they truly will get into hotels. So some of these screenshots are outdated and they're 2017 because they're now getting into the development phase where they are buying buildings. So we talk about a WeWork. I think Airbnb is headed in the same place 5-10 years down time. They will own buildings and they will become a large leaseor. Everybody knows this guy, right? Former Uber CEO. Our whole goal is to drive the cost of taking an Uber below the cost of owning a car. So I saw Uber Eats here. Is the Uber Eats representative in the room? We should get he or she in here because there is some stuff we'll talk about. But Travis Kalanick, it's interesting, they just IPO'd, and he wasn't allowed on the actual IPO floor at the NYSE because Dara, who has taken over, is working through the high cost of bad reputation. However, if you look at what they've done, they first overtook business, then they overtook the consumer, and now they're truly impacting the mass transit of the United States and other countries. Anybody know who this guy is? Say the name? Jack Ma. An amazing quote. I hope 15 years later people forget about e-commerce because they think it's like electricity. Think about that. Well, in just a short, nearly 2 decades, he has overtaken Walmart in GMV. So they should do $750 billion in GMV. What's crazy is we sit here and we watch the antitrust of Amazon and Google and everything that we're talking about in today's world, in reality, China is much worse. Alibaba has nearly 60% market share. 60%. Anybody know this guy? Come on, restaurants. It's the Grubhub CEO. He's selling a lifestyle change. He's talking to, once you've ordered once or twice, it's really a way of life. We make it free and easy to order, and people just like that. The ironic word is free. Isn't it? Right? Because we all know that if someone comes on premise, they have a larger check, they're going to buy something else. They may buy beverages, they may stay a little bit longer and have a second beverage. But when it's delivered via third party, it's a completely different economic model, right? You have to pay the commission fee to our buddy from the previous slide. You also have to pay for the cost of delivery. Now, restaurants have delivered for a long, long time. They just haven't delivered through marketplaces where they're paying a commission. Okay, I had to put that slide in there because you have to show the Zuck with every Facebook reference. Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. 1 in every 5 minutes on a smartphone in the US is spent on a Facebook property. So it's not just Facebook. With that said, within that properties, we've got all of them, right? This is the top iOS apps. We've got all of them, and guess what? The ones in red, they even copied. And what has that led to? It's led to 31% of the world accessing Facebook monthly, and 65% of those people, or roughly 1.5 billion, are accessing it daily. Facebook today, 37 minutes in the US every single day is spent per user. 37 minutes a day. 28 on Instagram. Who's this guy? Sundar Pichai, I think I heard 1 or 2 people say. Google CEO. This is probably the scariest statement I've ever seen in my life. AI is probably the most important thing humanity has ever worked on. Now, if you didn't have the context of knowing that Google says they do no evil, you would think that this is for health and everything else. Somehow I don't necessarily think that's the case, especially when you look at a Chrome-filled world, 62% market share globally. And then the entry to search is even worse. 92% of worldwide searches, excluding parts of China, so mainly keeping Hong Kong in there. Google. Here we go. It's Amazon time. Jeff Bezos. In the old world, you devoted 30% of your time to building a great service and 70% of your time shouting about it. In the new world, that inverts. So, Grubhub said, you know, it's free. He says he gives you free shipping. That's amazing. We're delivering all this stuff for free. 1994, only 1 state was in 1 to 2 days of an Amazon distribution center. 2014, roughly 40. 2016, 48. 2017, 48. 1 day. Now, as you know, in the metros, you can do same day. Our groceries just got delivered this morning from Whole Foods. We ordered it this morning at 5 o'clock here, and it was already there in New York. It's amazing, and it's all free, right? They took over the clothing world. Now they're making a dent in grocery. Grocery is the largest portion of our wallet. It's actually also the one part that Bezos has always wanted to conquer, and he never could. I think they are going to eventually. What's interesting about Amazon, and you don't have to focus on every single number here, but they're slowing. They are slowing, whether it's the law of large numbers or it's the fact that they can't sell much online themselves. They're not decent retailers and they need the marketplace to take it over. Nobody necessarily knows. However, they are making a hell of a lot more money. And the reason why is because it's all based around services. And they're getting away from that online store world where they had to take in the inventory, own it, sell it, make sure that they had the right stuff, take the markdown if they had the wrong stuff. It's a mess. Less than 50% of sales now are the online store. It's everything else. And then if you look at what they actually own and truly sell, nearly 60% of that is sold by third-party sellers. So It's not their inventory. It's all on consignment, or it's drop ship. So if nobody saw that, Alexa then goes into pornography and talks about the various Dallas people that she could show the pornography for. Amazon does no evil as well. What do all retailers have in common? If you start to build in, and this is a slide I've used for a long, long time, stores, digital sales, brand, and you build in all of the components that they deal with each and every day, tech sits right in the middle. Mobile, data, IoT, you name it. It all sits there. What's driving this? Obviously, the first thing is connectivity. We're near saturation point, or some would argue 2019 is saturation point for smartphones in the US. Globally, 80% of the world will have it by 2020. The scalability of Google Cloud, the scalability of AWS allows us to buy inexpensive bandwidth and build out these service offerings very, very easily. It's interesting, I don't know if you guys saw in the news, but 2 days ago, Google Cloud went down for a number of third parties that use them. Shopify, which builds a lot of D2C sites, so direct-to-consumer sites, actually went down because they're hosted by Google Cloud. So if you start to think of the cloud services, of the scalability that's hosting the majority of the world's big providers, there could be some big issues when they go down. Distribution, there is no such thing as a border anymore. Everything can go cross-border. Granted, this is obviously in the news a lot more now with China and Mexico tariffs, but it's cross-border with limitless touch. And the last piece that I think that no one talks about enough is that this entire economy of services, of products being delivered, is all being delivered through the on-demand economy, which is the 1099 contractors of Uber, the 1099 contractors of Amazon Flex. All of these are being delivered through an on-demand workforce. So you start to see these guys build on the 4 previous components, the Seamlesses, the Caviars, the Uber Eats, the Covers, the Instacarts. All of these guys are building their business on this. And if you start to think about what they've truly done, they've defined what we believe as consumers in this room is convenience today. And it's 3 things. It's limitless choice, so the ability to grab anything at any point, self-help, do it yourself, ask for it, query for it when you want it, and then you want it immediately. So what else are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about 3 things. The first thing is where do we spend our time? The second thing is how do we spend our money? And then the third thing, which I don't believe I can answer for all of you, and I can probably only help lead you down a road, is what should we do about it? So the first thing, everybody knows that we're spending more time in digital. We're spending more time just in this area. Legacy media going down, legacy television going down, except for things like connected TVs. We are spending more time in the connected world in TVs. Roku now sells, or their platform is on 1 in every 4 TVs sold in the US. 3 out of every 4 are connected TVs. So all of that will continue to grow. Social media networks are now used regularly by 1/3 of the global population. We're completely connected. Like I said before, Facebook 37 minutes a day, Instagram 28 minutes a day here in the US. And what ends up happening is as we shift our time to these various places, the media dollars follow. So on the top end, you've got the increase in dollars being moved to advertisers. And then on the bottom end is those advertisers saying that they're going to decrease within these particular locales. And this is traditional media, billboard, etc. This is actually influencers. And then you start to bring in the guys like Google, so AdWords, AdSense type stuff, Google Shopping, YouTube, Amazon. What's interesting is as the world becomes more direct to consumer and you see these brands proliferate, more and more people are saying no to Amazon, obviously. And then last but not least is Facebook and Instagram, right? So it's the same guys. It's the ones that you would expect to increase. Now, everyone says the tech is only used by Gen Z, Gen Y, millennials, whatever we want to name them. Guess what? Everybody uses the tech. Everybody uses their smartphones. And they're all using it for stuff that we would expect them to use it for. They're using it for things like store locations, checking prices, the normal stuff, the bread and butter of all of our businesses, the basics. Now, we don't talk about web rooming and showrooming and pickup anymore, and this slide I ended up updating with new data because I want to point out that now, at least, we're getting very close. We're going to be at a 50% mark for customers willing to do all of those. When you get to the 50% mark, you know that tech is truly here. We have to accept the reality that everyone's using it, and they're all using it for different ways, in different ways. Another thing that shocks me about surveys is when we ask about opinions of strangers through reviews and then forced recommendations by, whether it's websites or forced recommendations by end caps within stores. 60% are somewhat likely to follow the recommendation by a retailer, the biased recommendation of the retailer. And then 75% are cool with taking an opinion from a stranger on a product, right? No one wants to be an experiment and try something that's got 0 stars, but everyone's cool if it's got 4. The last thing that I'm going to leave you with here in this section that talks about the product is we hear a lot of conversation in today's world about private label. And the one thing that I want to say about private label is it's always been here, it will always be here. So know that that customer does exist. There is a customer that is not influenced by the 15 to 20% premium a brand may charge in price. There's always going to be a legacy retailer or a new retailer that's willing to push forward a private label next to a branded experience. So get over it. It's here. It's always been here. Let's talk about the actual customer by category and by age. And the best way that I think that I can look at this for you is to think through the purchase process. So if you look across the top, the discovery, the trial, the purchase, the pickup, and the return, each category has a particular preference. The higher the preference, the higher on the chart, by category, for willingness to want to shop in store. So if we look at discovery, apparel's the highest. If we look at trial, health and beauty, the sit-down counters, the Sephoras of the world, the Ultas of the world that have the kiosks to help you try it on. The purchase, furniture's the highest, typically a big ticket item. The pickup is health and beauty, which kind of surprised me a little bit. And then the return is health and beauty. So each one of these categories are different. When you look at that same exact type of play by ages, it's also very different. And again, look at the line. There is a customer that still prefers the store. The stores are not going away. The stores are going to be groomed over time and will continue to do so into perpetuity. We're going to get less stores, smaller stores. It's here, but there's still a customer for stores. What's shocking to me is retailers are willing to try and sell anything and everything online, and for some it's working. We thought big ticket items wouldn't work. It worked. Here's an example of me purchasing a fragrance. Now, go back, the highest in-store preference and trial preference was health and beauty, which this falls in. But these guys, in a world in which we can do free shipping, free returns, free exchanges, are willing to let you personalize the experience and come up with a recommendation for a particular fragrance. You never try it, and you pay, I believe it's $99 to purchase it. So I go through all of these crazy questions about my diet, about my age, about what drink I drink. I picked whiskey because I thought you guys would think I'm a little bit more sophisticated. I do have a confession. I always lie about my age, so I lied there. I'm actually 38. Your dress code. So I don't know the algorithms behind this, or I don't know what the personalization is behind this, how many different options they have and what they're selecting for me. But for the common shopper who doesn't look at it through our lens in the digital world, it's pretty interesting. And they're doing well. They're doing well. So it does all their analyzing of the data, and they came up with the work and play model at $100. And of course, free shipping, free exchanges, free returns. Retailers will try and sell anything. They will always try and sell anything. What I thought was interesting was to step back and we asked roughly 2,000 people, when they hear the term omni-channel shopping experience, which omni-channel is the worst word in retail, what do they think of? Just left it at that. And this is what came out. Of course, the free shipping, the online store, the online rules, reviews, the mobile. We would have to show you the audience, but it was generally a good representation of ages, genders, and types of corporate backgrounds. But here's what came out. There are people who hate salespeople. There are people who love salespeople, right? So creating intrigue. This is the shift into that attention economy piece. This is how much crap is being generated over the course of time by year. More and more stuff is coming. It's going to get harder and harder and harder to stand out from the noise. When you think about intrigue, you try and start where the eyes are, right? If you look at the smartphone searches, general information, those are the guys. If you move into the shopping searches, those are the guys. We're in this world of duopolies and monopolies for a lot of what it is we do to talk about our product. And as you can see, they've taken over advertising. They own advertising. Let's do a couple searches. So on desktop, I just did a simple search, mattress. First 4, ads. Google PLAs, ads. I haven't even gotten below the fold. Haven't got below an ad. Mobile, it's worse. Ads. Let's move to the food guys. Guess what? Delivery guys. Ads. Chinese cuisine, Thai cuisine. Ads. Food delivery. 4 ads. It's tough. It's very, very tough. How do we spend our money? For those of you that didn't have the Ambien refills, I think it was you and it's one other. I'm sorry, because this is when the data comes in. It gets really boring. If you wanted your Ambien, you should probably take it 3 slides ago. Don't focus on anything but here. What is this? This is what we're spending the wallet on. This is what we're spending the purse on. If you look at the first 2, from 1990 through to 2020, this is housing. So 18% of our wallet to 20% of our wallet. And then this is health, 13 to 19% of our wallet. This is important because what it does is it cuts out the tail. Taking out housing and health, this is the remaining categories. These are our categories that we have left over to spend our money on as consumers. As you can see, some have declined over time. Apparel, a business that I do a ton of business in, it's declined over time. Offshoring has helped in some respects. Fast fashion has hurt in some respects. But the point here is that all this stuff is declining. We're getting crimped more and more because housing and health takes up more of the wallet. So then let's look at the retailers and the associated groups that they're part of as part of this. Big yellow line, non-store retail from 2011 to 2018. We all know this continues. right? The rest of these guys have just stuck flat. So it's just been a market share game. New guy comes in, takes market share from an old guy, flip-flop. We take out food and restaurants and all that other stuff, and you can see the trends a little bit more, where it's actually moving to. We're spending more on home and housing, and then when you look in the categories, we're spending more at restaurants and bars. Good thing for some of us, bad thing for others. When you start to look specifically at the retailers that are underlying the data, the trends become even more apparent. You can see off-price guys, except for Saks off Fifth Avenue, they have gained comparable quarters year over year, quarter over quarter over quarter. They've seen only positives. Dollar stores, never even gone negative. This is several years' time. The department stores are all in red because we know why. It's been a tough life. I'm glad I made that career change 5 years ago. Mass retailers, they are picking up more of the wallet. The Costcos and the Walmarts and the Sam's Clubs, who are now more excited about apparel purchases and more excited about grocery, have continued to steal. So what should we do about it? The first thing I'm going to tell you is that retail sales are positive. We're nowhere near where we were in 2008, 2009, where we didn't have positive retail sales environment. So there is inflation. We can debate whether that's correctly reported or not, but we are in a positive retail environment. But we must remember that there is a customer that doesn't necessarily live in a binary world. That customer is not necessarily just looking for the experience online or just looking for the experience in a store. We need to be able to provide them both. And when you look at those two groups, there's different groups with which we can sell in. We can sell in marketplaces, we can skip marketplaces, we can sell direct to consumer, we can skip direct to consumer. All of these questions need to be answered. But each one of them, when you start to look at the word cloud of what answers are as to what they enjoy most, you can quickly see the difference between brick and digital still exists. There is no one meets all customer. We need to realize that the more options, the better. This is focused more so on the product world. But if you look at each one of these different retailers, believe it or not, Sears did a great job before a lot of other retailers on the buy online, pick up in store. But moving left from right, several options at checkout, Nordstrom, nailed. Google, you've got any query around location, their inventory is made online, nailed it. Sears, buy online, pick up in store, it was ready based upon Bluetooth beacons, believe it or not, 3 years ago. And then last, Amazon with multiple ship options. We must give our customers multiple options. So let's talk about product-based brands, and then I'm going to talk about restaurants. If we start to look through the old world model, we would run a factory's product through an agent to a wholesaler, to a retailer, to the customer, right? That was the old world. Some are still operating in this route, but that was the old world. Then we said we need to make more margin, so let's skip the agent. Then we said, you know what? We're just going to go direct to the retailer. Big guys like Walmart did this. Now we're in that direct-to-consumer, DTC world, where we think the only way to sell is direct to the consumer because it's better margins. Well, some of those have decided to open their own brand stores and their own brand sites. They've also decided to go down the marketplace route. I'm going to show you a brand now.
The sofa buying experience, frankly, sucks. There's a moment in the sofa buying experience, I call it the dead zone, when you make the purchase and then it comes, 3 months later. When you actually get that sofa, you're just irritated by the whole process. I feel like sofa purchase should be fun and exciting. It shouldn't be a drag. It shouldn't suck. I was a graffiti artist and a skater growing up here in San Francisco, and I wasn't able to afford the kind of furnishings that I wanted, which is why we created Benchmade Modern. We make everything custom. This allows the customer to have a say in the design. Any shape and size that they want to actually fit the room. So I've always felt, let's make the sofa for the room and not for the truck. We'll send you a full-scale plot of that sofa where you can lay it out on the floor and make sure it's a perfect fit. In 7 days, we'll make that sofa for you. But if you're really in a hurry, we'll make that sofa in 24 hours. We put a tracker on the sofa itself, and you can track that sofa all the way to your door like a newer car. We have 8 different styles. They come in 50 plus colors. Our best seller right now is Skinny Fat, named after myself. I was the skinny guy running around acting all crazy, but in a fat guy's body. I wanted to create furniture that was customizable for the masses, but I felt like I had to build my own factory to do that from day one. The term benchmade comes from products being made on top of the worker's bench. We make everything with kiln-dried alder frames. We don't use any flame retardants. Everything is responsibly sourced. We take pride in our work. Sofa purchase is a big purchase. If we can make the entire experience fun, why shouldn't it be?
Okay, so let's dissect what it is he just said. They have their own factory. They have their own store. They have their own site. He didn't tell you that he's selling on marketplaces. He didn't tell you that he's selling on other retailer sites. What they're doing with the left-hand side is they've got their brand factory, and they're building product specifically for their brand stores and their brand sites. But then they've split that and created a second brand called True Modern, where it's still being built in their factory. Some of it may be outsourced so that they can improve their margins because they know they need a middleman to sell. But they're using those brands to sell in the marketplaces. The Amazons, the Wayfairs, the Y Livings, the Design Publics, all those places where they can still gain sales, but not necessarily devalue their other brand. So the other big example within the news most recently was Harry's, right? Harry's went vertical, bought out the actual manufacturing facility in Germany. They got acquired by the guys who run Schick. This is how the D2C brands are currently operating in the world today. Let's talk a bit about restaurants. So it's completely inverted. I didn't build up the slide because you had seen previously for the product side what's happened on the now the restaurant side. So previously, a customer would go direct to the restaurant, or do you remember the days when you'd call up for delivery, right? Then it moved into delivery, and now it's moved into a marketplace model whereby a large percentage of the deliveries are driven by a marketplace in which maybe the restaurant's delivering, or the case of certain marketplaces where they take care of the delivery, where they want to own the overall experience. Case in point would be the guys from Square with their caviar offering. Now, here's the thing. Everyone says, if you listen in retail sales, everyone says, you know what, e-commerce is less than 10% of overall retail sales. Well, it's slightly misleading because if you start to strip away the items that can't be bought online, it's actually a much larger percentage. And I also have tracked over time what the prognosticators have said for that percentage and how quickly it's grown. E-commerce has grown a heck of a lot faster than what everyone thought it would. I think the same is going to happen for delivery. Now that you have these marketplaces that are offering anything at the fingertips, we have the connectivity, we have that scalability, this 11% by 2022, which still sounds relatively small, I think is going to be a lot larger. So, start to think through where deliveries are going to be as a restaurant. By 2022, roughly 2.2x larger will be driven by marketplaces for restaurants than their own apps and their own websites. And I don't know if the Uber Eats person joined us, did they? Come on, man. No? Okay, well, here is what everyone is thinking in terms of 2018 to 2022, who will be the largest guys. So today, Grubhub, which owns Seamless, is currently at 5.1. They are thought to be at 11.6, matching up to Uber Eats, who should be at 11.6, and then slightly below that, DoorDash, who will be at 10.6. I don't think this is going to happen. I honestly think that Postmates will get bought out before its IPO, or maybe they IPO and they get bought out post-IPO, or DoorDash gets bought out by one of these two guys. It's probably not going to be Grubhub, mainly because their stock has been terrible. And Uber Eats is well-funded. I don't know if you saw yesterday, but 20 analysts upgraded the stock. So this will shrink into the duopoly and the monopoly that we're used to, in my opinion. If not, it's great because we at least have a three-headed monster to play with in the restaurant space. The last slide I'm going to leave you with within this world of what I think you should do is I don't necessarily want to tell you what I think you should do. I just want to guide you to think through how you should tackle the problem. But this whole direct-to-consumer addiction, it's growing. And it's getting much, much bigger. And once a direct-to-consumer site or brand starts to get to that level or size, the Bonobos of the world, the Harrys of the world, they do get bought out. So be aware that direct-to-consumer is growing in customers' minds. Anybody know this guy? I doubt. Maybe? No? Okay. So everyone always asks me, Ryan, you talk about, the Facebook and the Insta duopoly. What do we do about it? Well, there is alternatives, right? You could obviously turn it off, but you need to be present somewhere and to be talking about your product in a digital way. One example is companies like this from Trade Desk. So Trade Desk essentially goes out to the world and buys up all the spots or auctions off all the spots that are non-Google, non-Facebook. So the Roku buying, the affiliate sites, all of that stuff is bought up by someone else. The reason I tell you about this is because this is a solid alternative to the Google and Facebook. And the reason why is it's a lot more competitive, it's truly done in auction format, and there is a boatload of inventory. Now, believe it or not, I know we all talk about the creepy ads where we see something that we've already bought, previously retargeted, or we see something that we didn't assume that a retailer knew we were looking at. It's going to get better. And companies like this are making it better, so targeted ads, which is a very big space, is getting much, much better. There are alternatives to Google and Facebook. So what now? I left roughly 15 minutes for questions and answers, so I'm right on time. But I want you to keep these 3 points in mind. The first thing is accept your reality. Today's customer is traded down in dollars. They've shrunk their wallet. Yes, on the high end in luxury, they may have not, but the majority of the consumers that we sell to have shrunk their wallet, and they've potentially traded up in convenience. Now, that convenience factor comes at a cost, whether it's the cost of the Grubhub delivery or it's the Amazon Prime effect. All of that comes at a cost. So the customer is shrinking their wallet and they're trading up in convenience, but they're paying for that convenience. Keep that in mind. The second thing to think about, segment your customer supply chain. I don't necessarily mean the supply chain of how you deliver product to them. What I mean is the acquisition channel that you pull them in on, as well as how you deliver to them. The loyal truly desire a one-to-one relationship where they can go to your website and they can transact with you in a direct-to-consumer way, whereas the others, they might be a little bit more fickle, might not know about you, or might not be willing to try you until they see a customer review. Know that that newer, convenient relationship may come through a marketplace. And then the last thing is expand your reach. You still need to spend on the monopolies and the duopolies of Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat, but there is alternatives. There is a much larger tail that you can carve out your own niche in a very targeted way and a relatively effective and efficient way cost-wise. Those are the 3 points. Thank you for the 45 minutes. Happy to take questions, and I appreciate your time.